This video is to describe the differences between example 5 and example 6 and the images contained therein. So I've copy pasted these images onto a single page for our viewing pleasure. What I've got here are images that show 50 confidence intervals in each image. I am not asking that you create or recreate this image in any way. This is to illustrate what confidence means for a confidence interval. So what I've essentially done was create random data. On this image on the left, I've created 50 random samples, and you can see up here 50 random samples. And it's a little crowded, but those are called C1, C2, C3, etc., all the way up to C50. We don't really need to worry about that. In each of these 50 samples, there were 100 observations. Those 100 values were simulated or randomly generated from a normal population with a mean of 35 and a population standard deviation of 4. So that is the supposed population parameter values. For the purpose of academia, we're pretending that we know these. In reality, you don't generally have access to that kind of information. So in R, what I essentially did was use the R norm function. And I'm going to just pop that open real quick just so you can see what that looks like. Get in there. Okay. Essentially what I did was R norm. I create random values from a normal distribution, create 100 of them, with a mean of 35 and a standard deviation of 4. So that would give you a sample. Now I did that 50 times, 50. And I created a confidence interval for each of them. Now I'm not going to replicate that whole process here. Basically what you need to know and observe has been translated into this image here. So each of these blue bars the edge is representing, I'll look at this one, is representing the lower bound of a confidence interval from a random sample. And then up here we've got the upper bound. And that is the case for all 50 bars there. This sort of blue, almost looks like a target in the middle. That would be the sample mean of the random sample. What this image is illustrating is that, in many samples, it's not that many, it's 50. There are 50 confidence intervals here. Each of these confidence intervals is used to estimate the population mean, which is generally unknown, but for the purposes of academia, we're pretending that we know it, 35. You will notice that in most of these confidence intervals, not all of them, most of them, somewhere between the lower and upper bound, the value of 35 is contained. Now I put a little reference line here at 35, so that would make it easy to observe. So starting from, I'm going to start from the right side here of this image. This very far right blue confidence interval, you can see extends from, about 33.5 up to maybe 35.1 or so. So that confidence interval on the very right does contain 35. I would call that a winner. The next confidence interval also contains 35 somewhere within it. Most of these confidence intervals do. The next one does as well. The next one does as well. But this orange arrow is pointing to a confidence interval that does not contain the population mean of 35. I guess that's not a winner. So most of these do. There is another confidence interval that does not contain 35, and it's all the way over here to the left side. When I say most, that is referring to the confidence level. We said that confidence refers to the proportion of random samples whose confidence interval are expected to contain the population mean. In this case, since there are 50 random samples, we expect 0.95 or 95% of them to contain the population mean. Now that's going to be a 47.5, but here, since there are 2 confidence intervals that do not contain the population mean, 48 of them do. Let's see what happens if we change the confidence level from 95 to 90. This image was created with the exact same 50 samples. The only thing that was changed was the confidence level from 95 to 50. 95 to 90. So we discussed in class how that will actually make the confidence interval smaller or thinner. We still have the same 2 confidence intervals that are losers, I suppose, not winners. But because this confidence interval width got smaller, we've actually lost a couple other winners, namely these 2. The one that's almost directly in the middle and the one on the very, very right. Because these confidence intervals all got a little smaller. In this case, most, again, of these intervals still contain the population mean of 35. But this time, when I say most, I'm referring to 90%. So what is 0.9 times 50? That's 45. So in any set of 50 confidence intervals, we would expect 45 of them to contain the population mean. In this particular set of 50, 46 of them contain the population mean. That's how expectation works. So hopefully this helps you in interpreting what confidence means and to interpret these images.